Hey, how we doing, everyone? Welcome back to another video on the wicked Kawasaki ZH2. Now, recently we had a nice chap reach out to us to ask about getting yourself ready, position-wise and everything else, when you are experiencing full power of a motorcycle for the first time. How would you prepare yourself for that experience? So, Ed asks, hi, I've been following your YouTube channel for some time and wondered if you could please do a video tutorial on how to position yourself on a fast sport bike before hard acceleration. Everything from what to do with your feet, hands, legs, head, the lot. They say they're quite a new rider on a Yamaha R1 and want to explore the throttle past halfway, but I'd like to know how to get your body ready for the G-force to ensure you're not thrown off the back. Or could also be good content. Thanks, Ed. Thank you ever so much, mate, for reaching out to us. I hope that this video helps you out in this regard. And this isn't really a topic that a lot of content creators or motorcyclists in general talk about. They just kind of think, well, you get on the bike and you just ride it and you get the hang of it and you got to kind of wing it, that kind of thing. And that's what I had to do, to be fair. And that's what most riders do, but I do kind of understand how it can be a little bit intimidating when you get on a big motorcycle like this for the first time. How to prepare yourself, not just physically, but I suppose mentally as well, for the kind of power that these machines can develop, can produce, is crazy. And I'm not going to lie to you, my experience of this motorcycle, the ZH2, honestly, for the most part, I give it about 75 to 80% throttle. 100% throttle, it's tough on this bike because you're pulling wheelies and things. So it can be really difficult on bikes like this, especially on the road. But okay, so as this isn't really a topic that is discussed all that often, and to be honest with you, I'm still trying to figure it out myself in a lot of ways, how I actually prepare myself for full throttle on a motorcycle like this. But we'll see if we can work through it. A lot of it does depend on the motorcycle itself. So the ZH2, as I'm kind of sitting here naturally, is quite upright. You know, so my movement from here to sitting upright isn't too far really from the handlebars. So experiencing full throttle on something like this is actually more difficult than on something like an R1 or a sport bike, because you are leaning forward significantly more naturally because of the ergonomics of the bike, and also the fact that because you're able to get more of your body weight onto those handlebars, so when the bike accelerates, it takes a lot more for you to get thrown back. So I will say that when it comes to full throttle on a motorcycle like this that is more upright, is a bit more difficult than on a motorcycle that is leaning significantly further forward. Not to mention the fact that as well, where the foot pegs are positioned on the bike can make a huge difference. I mean, imagine if these foot pegs were back here, where these pillion pegs are. Well, let's see. Okay, now I know this is an extreme position, but you know what I mean. The more you can lean forward like this, so that when you pull that throttle back and the bike wants to throw you off, well, you're using your feet and your body weight as well to hold yourself in position. But what I would recommend is doing it gradually and putting yourself just a little bit more out there. And the thing is, remember that for street use as well, you're not exactly going to be using full power a lot of the time. All right, so you're getting yourself ready, you're riding, you're getting yourself ready. What is it you're doing? So the very first thing that I'm doing is I'm covering my rear brake. All right, I'm also leaning my torso forward, leaning my head forward like this, right? So you find a lot of the time when I'm on the power of the ZH2, I'm actually leaning forward like this. And like I kind of mentioned, on a sport bike, that's much easier to do because you're already halfway there, thanks to the ergonomics. But for me, this is what you need the most, is leaning your body weight forward. Some people will shift their butt a little bit backwards on the seat because, of course, you've got this little brace here on the bike where the pillion seat would be. All right, so that's another thing that you can do to help yourself kind of withstand the G-forces. To be honest with you, G-forces on a motorcycle are a little bit different to a car, because the more G-forces you get, the more the bike is actually going to want to lift the front wheel off the ground rather than throw you back into the seat. So that's something to keep in mind, is that on full power, on a lot of these 1000s, the front wheel is going to want to come up as well. So, of course, if you're using wheelie control or if you're using traction control, like on this motorcycle, the wheelie control is the traction control as well. They're kind of built in together, the two systems. Well, turn that on as well. Keep that on to make sure that front end stays down. Because when you're experiencing full power for the first time, you don't want loads of things to think about. You don't want to have to worry about the front wheel coming up off the ground. So make sure the wheelie control is on if it's a newer bike that has got things like wheelie control and traction control. My hands are holding on tight, of course. My head is leaning forward. My neck is already back like this. So if you're sitting upright like this and you accelerate, your neck doesn't do this. You're already bracing your neck in this position here to experience the power. But it's one of those things that you get used to as well. Once you start exploring past 50% throttle, well, you get more confident doing it, if you know what I mean. Spend a little bit of time on dual carriageways and putting a little bit of power down where you feel comfortable. Get to, say, I don't know, halfway through the rev range, so on this bike about 6,000 RPM, and then from there pull the throttle back a little bit more and see how it feels, and then a little bit more, and pull it back a little bit more aggressively every single time as well. And then the more gradually you do that, the more you'll actually kind of understand how the bike feels under a lot of, under a high load. But let's turn the bike on. So we've got this camera here that hopefully will capture the whole bike as I'm riding. But if we talk in practical terms, let's see. Because this motorcycle, as I mentioned, leans quite upright. Well, you've got to artificially position yourself forward like this. And the front wheel wanted to come off the ground there already. And that was, what, 20% throttle? Something ridiculous like that. Here we go. Alright. My initial reaction, my initial instinct is to lean forward. And you find that actually the more of your body weight that gets closer to the center mass of the bike, the less grip you actually have to hold onto with your hands. Now, believe it or not, I don't grip onto my handlebars that much. Not that hard, rather, but it is one of those things that when you experience it for the first time, that's kind of what you will do. And this is something that you can practice in a small parking area, is getting the positioning right. So if you, and try different things as well. If you want to try scooting your bum a little bit further back into the seat, then do that, then lean forward, put on a little bit of that power and see how it feels. The only thing is, on a sport bike, it's a little bit different because the power is being produced at the top end of the rev range. Whereas on the ZH2, yeah, it does produce peak horsepower at I think it's like 10,000 RPM or so. But even from 2,000 to 6,000 to 8,000, there's a load of power on tap. And it's just the way how the engines are designed differently. So you see how I naturally just lean myself forward. That for me is the most important thing to do, is to lean your body weight forward into the bike, into the handlebars. Because then you're letting your body weight do a lot of the work. And you know, when you're positioned like that as well, I don't know, for me it feels, I feel a little more confident when I'm like that. But of course, when you do get used to it as well, right? So I'm sitting up right here, right? I do get used to that feeling as well. But I do have to hold on to handlebars a lot harder if I'm going to lean back like this and sit normally and then bosh. But even then, I can feel my core, my abs tensing as I'm on the throttle. But you will learn to relax into it, especially if you lean forward, even just a little bit of lean. Right, a little bit of lean can make a big difference to how it feels for your body, the experience that your body goes through. But we'll go out for a ride in a little bit to kind of explore a little bit more. But remember that the most G-forces you're going to feel is in first gear. The most torque you're going to feel is in first gear and second gear. The more gears you go up, of course, the less of that force you're going to feel. So I mean, we'll try a second gear here, but it certainly takes a lot longer to build up that power. So you have a little bit more time to prepare yourself. But keep that in mind, all right? A sport bike, 6,000 RPM and under, isn't going to feel that powerful. Well, it's still going to feel powerful, but it's not going to feel as powerful as it does further up in the range. And that's what we'll explore a little bit later when we're out and about. So when the ZH2 is at 6,000 RPM, and then I crank the throttle back, how does it react? And I am going to put on the wheelie control for that, I think. But for me, my head placement is up. So imagine you're doing like a push-up, right? So if you're doing a push-up properly, you should be having your head forward as you do the push-up, right? A little bit like that. So I'm leaning forward. Getting myself ready to pull that throttle back. It's really difficult because it is one of those things that you learn over time. It's one of those things that as you get more experience of the bike, you will learn to understand and you'll learn to appreciate a little bit better. So I wouldn't worry about it necessarily. It's perfectly natural and perfectly normal to be intimidated by a motorcycle's power if you've only just bought it and you're kind of getting the hang of things. It's perfectly normal. But the more you ride it and the more you push the boundaries out a little bit, do it a little bit at a time. You know, there's no one rushing you. There's no one telling you to be 100% on the power all the time. So take your time with it. All right, so let's head out onto the roads and let's see if I can describe what I'm doing as we're out on a ride, because it might be a little bit different. As I'm thinking about it, it might be different to what I actually do. So let's just confirm that. But for me, the lean forward is definitely the most important part, is leaning forward a little bit into it. If you can lean yourself into it before you actually pull the throttle back, that's when that's when things become a lot easier. It's a lot easier to anticipate the force that you get. Because yeah, I mean, even in first gear, yeah, see how I naturally just lean forward. That's one of those things I suppose that you'll get used to as you get more experience on the bike. Right, so before we go, I'm going to put on the wheelie control because it's best practice. Let's put it I'll put it on level 1, even though I know that it's still gonna try putting wheelies. All right. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll get the bike in first gear up to 6,000 RPM, nice and easy, and I'll pull on it. Then we'll see how I react. Pretty sure it's a fairly straight piece of road here. Okay, ready? So we're at 5,000 RPM, here we go. See how that front wheel just came up immediately. Let's try again. Ready? Here we go. It can get difficult. Let's try at 6,000 RPM. Here we go. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That front wheel just wants to jump straight up. So that's the one thing that I will say is, when you're experiencing full power, don't jerk it. Don't do this. Roll it on. I know this is 30 down here, but we can do this fairly straight. So from here, roll it on. Roll on that power until you get to the point that you feel comfortable. I'm not gonna lie as well, I brought out the hardest bike to do this on today, because the ZH2, man, I don't know what it is about it, but the power that this bike has is crazy, especially in the first couple of gears. I find I'm more confident pulling the throttle back 100% on the ZZR 1400 than I am on this bike. And the thing is, like something like an R1 or a Fireblade or a ZX10R they're going to be lighter than this bike as well. So yeah, you're probably going to feel more of those, more of that power, more of those G-forces. Second gear, of course, is much easier to deal with because the front end isn't going to want to kick up anywhere near as much or as quickly as first gear does. I mean, it still does it on this bike though. Let's see. All right, so we're coming out of the 30 zone here. All right, we'll go first gear again. All right, ready? Here we go. See, I come off the throttle. As soon as that front wheel comes off the ground, even though the wheelie control is on right now, I come off the throttle. That's just me. That's just my instinct. That's what I like to do, to try and keep that front wheel on the ground. And if you're not trying to practice wheelies, well, then you do the same thing, right? But we'll do the same thing in second gear in a second here. Right. So we're at 4,500 RPM. Here we go. That was about 75% throttle, maybe 90% throttle, 80 to 90% throttle. All right, here we go. Ready? You felt that wheelie control kicking in there. I did rather. Yeah, I really felt that wheelie control kick in just now. But that's the problem with bikes like this. The front end just wants to come up so much, and so it has to cut the power down anyway. You find the computers a lot of the time will actually kick in. So here we go. Woo! Crazy thing is, that wasn't 100%. That was not 100%. In third gear, 100% is a little bit easier again, but of course you're going to be doing over 100 mile an hour. Right, here we go. Second gear, 100%. Yeah, I had to come off. I had to come off again. Because the front wheel just wanted to come up off the ground. Third gear. Yeah. Yeah, third gear is much easier to manage, of course. Just 100% throttle, but yeah, it's hard, man. On these bikes, it's hard. Really hard. I gotta keep an eye around me as well to make sure that there's no one who report me. Okay, that was pretty much 100% throttle in third gear. Much easier to manage. The G-forces aren't so bad, but it's not the G-forces that you have to worry about. Like I said, it's that front wheel coming off the ground that is the issue. I was going to turn in there, but yeah, it is difficult and it can be scary, I'm not going to lie. It can be really scary. Fifth gear 100% throttle is nothing. That's 100%. But of course, as it goes up through the range, you're gonna feel more of that power as it gets to peak horsepower, peak torque. But yeah, it's those first couple of gears that are gonna give you the most trouble, I think, and are gonna be the scariest. Like right now, I'm feeling a little bit anxious. You know what I mean? A little bit stressed, but I like that feeling. So, gosh, it's flooding. Blimey. Yeah, I enjoy that. I enjoy what the aspect of bikes like these is the fact that there is going to be power that I'm not going to be able to control. At least not on these kinds of roads anyway. If you're on like an airstrip or something like that, then it becomes a lot easier. But it is what it is, unfortunately. But like I kind of said, you're going to find it very difficult to do 100% throttle on any of these kinds of roads. And not just because the front wheel is going to want to come up every time as well. So we'll do third gear. We'll go from 6,000 RPM and we'll tug it. But yeah, rolling on the throttle is really important. But naturally, yeah, I'm leaning forward as I'm kind of getting into the power a little bit. I'm holding on a little bit tighter. But all this becomes a lot easier on something like a sport bike. because you're already half the work has already been done for you, because you're already leading the bike forward. Just remember that if you're doing 100% throttle on something like an R1 or any kind of sport bike for that matter, you're going to be doing well over 100 mile an hour in second gear, but maybe even in first gear as well. Right, let's do third. Right, okay. Alright, we're holding about 6,000 RPM. 3, 2, 1. Woo! See what I mean? it's ridiculous. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. And that was 95% throttle, thereabouts. When I get past 10,000 RPM, I do let off a little bit because I don't want to redline it. And you know, a supercharged motorcycle like this, I mean, it's not good for you to redline it anyway. But if you want to look after your bikes, that is, well, don't redline them. We'll try it again if we get a straight, but yeah. But my initial instinct is to lean forward into it, and I am holding on fairly tight onto the handlebars as well. But there's not a lot going on my feet, to be perfectly honest with you. My foot is covering the rear brake, but that's about it. Alright, there's a little bit of a hill here. Once we get over the crest of the hill, okay, here we go. Woo! Oh, you see that front wheel came up again. Front wheel just whoosh. It's come straight up. Oh man, yeah, great fun, but terrifying at the same time. Very scary, especially in first and second gear. Second gear is just, gosh. But the best piece of advice I can give you is to roll on the throttle. Woo! Do you see that? How quick the front end came up. If I just jammed on the throttle like that, I'd be on my ass right now. Yeah. That's why you roll on the throttle. But that's what I would do. So, I mean, if we're in a second gear, right, so start 6,000 RPM, put it back a little bit, see how that feels. Go up to 8,000 RPM, put it back again, see how that feels. Go up to 10,000 RPM, put it back, see how that feels. And build yourself up gradually that way. Especially on sport bikes as well, because remember that they're producing so much more power at the top end of the rev range. Whereas at least with the ZH2, it kind of builds you up to it more gradually. Whereas once you hit that power band on something like a sport bike, well, the power just, it feels totally different than what you'd experienced beforehand in the first half of the rev range. But yeah, lean forward. Lean forward is the best advice I can give you. And roll on the throttle easy, don't jerk it, don't do this. That's bad, that's naughty. There's nothing wrong with getting to a point in experiencing a motorcycle's power and thinking that's it, I can't handle anymore. There's nothing wrong with that, alright? Trust me, there's no way that I'm one of those riders that's going to be able to control 100% of the throttle on this bike in first, second, even maybe third gear 100% of the time. So don't think that because you have all that power that you've got to use it. Use as much power as you feel comfortable with, alright? And that's probably some of the best advice I can give you when it comes to big bikes like this. Don't worry about it. Don't feel pressured into leaving power on the table, alright? For me, it's enough. With this bike anyway, with this motorcycle, with the ZH2, it's enough for me. Even though it would be nice to have a little bit more power to get a little bit more of that feeling that, yeah, there's more power on tap that I'll never be able to access. For me, I get excited by that aspect of the bikes. But honestly, there's not much more that I could probably take. So we'll see in the near future what motorcycle manufacturers come out with when it comes to power, torque and all that. Because of course, us as motorcyclists, we always want a little bit more than what we've got. But get to that point and don't worry about it. Don't feel like you have to explore more of the power if you really don't want to, if it feels really unsafe, or if you don't feel that you can do it on a street, then on a road, go ahead and book a day at a track. Do it on a track instead, and then you will at least get that experience under your belt, and you'll know what the bike truly feels like. But just keep in mind that most insurance companies won't insure you for track day use of your bike. That's, yeah, a real bummer, eh? But it is what it is, alright? Anyway, everyone, I hope that this video has been a little bit insightful into how I handle the power of motorcycles like my ZH2, like the ZZR 1400 and the ZX9. Of course, as you go up in power, as you go up in class of motorcycle, then it's a whole new learning experience. Right, once you get past halfway of the RPM limit, it can get really difficult sometimes, and it can be really intimidating. But a lot of it is how big your cojones are, how big your bollocks are, to be perfectly honest with you. But honestly, if you don't have it, it's fine. If you don't have it in you, there's nothing to worry about. But from my perspective, I mean, what I've kind of demonstrated today is pretty much what I do on a daily basis when I'm out riding powerful bikes. I know my limits, and I stick within my limits as much as possible. Every now and then, if I get a straight road or something where there's no traffic around, then I'll give it a little bit of a pop and really see what the motorcycle is capable of. But for the most part, I stay well within my means, and it's all well and good as someone who is confident riding at 100% throttle all the time on a motorcycle. But of course, the more you do that, well, the more risks you're taking, to be perfectly honest with you. All right, so you only use 100% throttle or 80% throttle, whatever you're comfortable with, at the right times. All right, when you can use them safely. It's very difficult. I can't reiterate that enough. Okay, now here, for example, 100%. You see how the bike just jumps you? You know, that's what happens on bikes like these. That's what happens, and that's what you got to watch out for. That's what you got to be careful of. For me, that is what is more scary. Not the power of the bike, but the bike jumping up off the ground, the front wheel coming up off the ground. You can adjust the suspension as well, make the rear a little bit softer, a little bit less bouncy if you want to try and keep that front end on the ground. There's a few little things that you can do, or maybe you've got electronically adjustable suspension from your dashboard. That's great too. You can go ahead and use that to kind of, cater the experience. But for me, the thing is, because I want to get used to wheelies anyway, I'm leaving the traction control off most of the time. I'm also hardening the suspension or making it more bouncy to try and facilitate more of that front end coming up off the ground. And but that's just me. That's not necessarily in your case, but you know. So that's my motivation behind doing that, because I am scared of wheelies, and I'm trying to get more confident doing them. I'm trying to get more confident when that front end just bucks off the ground. I'm trying to get more confident in controlling that rather than just coming off the throttle all the way and letting the front wheel come down as I naturally do instinctually. I want to be able to control the wheelie a little bit more, if you know what I mean. So that's kind of like my goal. But if it's just for power, if it's just for feeling the power, you don't have to do it whilst pulling a wheelie. There are things you can do to mitigate the front end coming off the ground, or to try and prevent it coming off the ground. But yeah, just ease yourself into it, right? Ease yourself into it, and just keep in mind that the bike is going to feel totally different at 100% throttle compared to 50% throttle. Because of course, like I mentioned, most bikes produce their peak horsepower at the higher end of the rev range. So it's going to feel totally different. But let me know what you think down in the comment section below. If there's any of you that have got some more tips or tricks for Ed or myself or anyone else that is getting on a big bike for the first time, or they've only had it for a little while, and they're intimidated by the amount of power that they have, but they want to try and experience a little bit of it. Well, what would you do to prepare yourself for it? Let me know down in the comment section below. Let me know what you do with your hands, with your feet, with your head, how you prepare your body. And there's one thing I will say as well, is that if you are preparing your body for 100% throttle, you're not going to be aching and sore afterwards. You're not going to feel like you've got whiplash because you're already preparing yourself for it. You only get things like whiplash when you're not expecting it. Anyway, everyone, I hope that today's video has helped you out, Ed. I hope that this has answered your question. I've given you my best kind of description of how it feels and what I do to prepare my body for it. And if you can get into that kind of muscle memory, that whenever you're pulling back on the throttle, you naturally do this with your body, you naturally do this with your hands, with your feet, with your head, then a lot of it falls into place a little bit more. But as I kind of said, don't worry about it. If you get to a point that you simply can't do anymore, leave at least for now anyway. And then if another time you go out for a ride again in future and you want to experience it again, then do it again and maybe push that boat out a little bit further. But as I kind of described today, doing it gradually is the best way. Don't just go ahead and do your... They wanted me to rev it, but nope, I'm not going to, sorry. Yeah, don't just go into it headstrong 100%, alright? I think most people don't. But don't be afraid as well to push the boat out a little bit more. But anyway, everyone, like I said, leave a comment. Let us know what you think down in the comment section. As always, go ahead, leave that like button, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell, and we will catch you all in the next video. Have a good one.